Every Ace Attorney, starting with Justice for All, has had its own gimmicks, from Phoenix's Magatama in Justice for All and Trials and Tribulations, all the way to Spirit of Justice and the Divination Seances. Ace Attorney has always found weird and amazing ways to spice up the investigation and trial sequences. However, the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles has two big gimmicks, the Dance of Deduction and the Closing Argument. I'll have to talk about the second one some other time, but this video will focus on how the Dance of Deduction turns Ace Attorney into the Great Ace Attorney. To backtrack a little, Ace Attorney was experimenting with three-dimensional backgrounds back in Dual Destinies and Spirit of Justice. I remember the first time I could rotate my perspective of the crime scene in the Monstrous Turnabout and thinking, wow, it really can't get much cooler than this. Fortunately, I was wrong. While being able to shift perspectives on a crime scene to discover interesting pieces of evidence and information can be fun, it felt rather wooden. Eventually the charm wears off, and it's really just another way to extend the time of investigations, as every nook and cranny has to be investigated. It's not that it was a bad feature or a mistake, but something that needed to be further explored and fleshed out to bring out its fullest potential. Going back to the Great Ace Attorney, the Dance of Deduction has a very simple premise. Herlock Sholmes provides a theory on a scene, and Ryunosuke Naruhodo provides another way of looking at the same scene. Really, this can be thought of as a courtroom scene, but outside the courtroom, with Sholmes being the one to present some sort of testimony, and Naruhodo presents evidence or information to contradict that. Yet the way it plays out is an elegant dance of the absurd and the hilarious, and sometimes leading to a rather grim truth about the nature of certain characters or a crime scene. Sometimes when investigating in a crime scene, you'll find Herlock Sholmes hanging out, sometimes quite literally, and he will propose his wonderful deductions. While they are usually outlandish, to say the least, there's a string of truth that lies just parallel to what he's saying, and it's our job to find that. By looking around the room, rotating the camera, analyzing pieces of evidence that we couldn't even see before, and even examining the characters themselves, the Dance of Deduction brings to life the concept of dynamic investigation that the initial 3DS games were going for. The Dance of Deduction isn't something that happens all the time though, and I think that works to its favor. Most crime scenes do not have a Herlock Sholmes intervention, and it keeps the gameplay rather standardized for the most part. It's not like Ace Attorney was lacking because it had a simple formula of talking to the witnesses and investigating the crime scenes into a trial sequence. But the little spice that the Dance of Deduction brings to the table is just enough for me to look forward to when Sholmes pops his head in and jazzes up the moment with his bizarre deductions. This sequence of investigation into an occasional Dance of Deduction works to do something that the Ace Attorney series has struggled with since its inception, making the investigation scenes engaging. Prior to the Great Ace Attorney, investigation scenes were usually a tedious evidence-hunting scavenger hunt, where the most interesting things to happen relate to the certain gimmicks that an Ace Attorney game might have. In Justice for All and Trials and Tribulations, that can be seen with the Magatama, which would test your knowledge of the case and ultimately lead you to learn something new about a character, a crime scene, or the incident in general. In the same vein, the Dance of Deduction serves many of the same purposes as the Magatama, just with a lot more modern flair and character. Because the Dance of Deduction's main actor, Herlock Sholmes, is such a zany character, it keeps the scenes unpredictable and fun. And that's important because Ace Attorney thrives not only off the intrigue of murder, but also its wacky and eccentric characters. Sholmes is a breath of fresh air to investigations because it's not dependent on the main character themselves having some special supernatural power or gimmick that allows them to perceive the truth, but something that feels much more natural and grounded in reality. Now the question I sometimes think about is, should Sholmes' deductions make more sense? I mean, in one of them, he really stretches the imagination with the idea that a very obvious time bomb is some sort of anti-gravity device. And my response to that is, absolutely not. Sholmes is a genius, and there's no doubt about that. So why does he miss so many obvious clues that any idiot should notice? It is because he wants Naruhodo to learn the art of deduction. In the very first case of the Great Ace Attorney, Naruhodo claims that his one talent is his powers of observation. He can notice things that other people do not, like how he remembers about the presence of the bloodstain on the steak plate. Yet, in the mystery-solving business, knowing how to observe is not enough. Yes, it is good that Naruhodo has eyes, but he also needs to learn how to use his brain, how to make deductions. Sholmes very intentionally flubs deductions to teach Naruhodo not only to think for himself, but to look at things differently and also how to question authority. It is very easy to take a great detective's word as gospel. After all, Sholmes has had many stories written about him, and he is heralded as one of Britain's greatest minds. Sholmes doesn't need to prove himself to Naruhodo, but he does need Naruhodo as an accomplice in the future in challenging the institutions of Great Britain that have been shrouded in an ominous, secret darkness. A darkness that Sholmes knows that only someone from the outside and someone with a true sense of justice and trust can challenge. Sholmes can be annoying, he can be silly, and he can be downright ridiculous, but he's also very cunning. And that cunning is why, beyond the fact that it is fun to solve a mystery on your own and challenge the great detective's deductions, that Sholmes has to be so wronged. I believe that he knows the truth, but being intentionally wronged is in service of a greater learning and character development that he needs Naruhodo to go through before Naruhodo faces his greatest opponents in the Great British Empire. Thank you for watching this video. I've been streaming fairly regularly on Twitch at twitch.tv/thelazylee. If you want to check that out, I'd really appreciate it. If you enjoy this kind of content, consider subscribing to the channel. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them down below. The next video will either be a review of The Adventure of the Runaway Room, or a little discussion about the divination seances. I'll figure that out in the coming days. Anyways, I'll see you in the next one, or in one of my streams. Later.